Welcome to The Breakdown, being brought to you by the African National Women's Organization, ANWO, a mass organization under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. The Breakdown is a monthly news, analysis, and opinion program, as well as a platform for highlighting guests whose issues spotlight the international plight of colonized women fighting colonialism. My name is Coco Lewis. I will be your MC for today's broadcast. For today's breakdown, we are discussing the U.S. two-party system and the 2024 presidential elections. The outcome of the U.S. presidential elections are critical to how the U.S. implements foreign and national policy. People and governments around the world are watching closely. The two front runners are Kamala Harris, current vice president, who represent the Democratic Party, and Donald J. Trump, previously elected president in 2018, who represents the Republican Party. In some states, there are other candidates on the ballot, including Jill Stein for the Green Party, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Chase Oliver, Libertarian. How closely do their platforms subscribe to the Black political agenda, an agenda created by the Black is Black Coalition in 2016 to help Black people center our issues and measure whether any elected officials are helpful to Black people in this country and beyond? Did you miss our last live stream? We are African because we say we were in September. If you enjoy our content, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our platforms. Our annual YouTube is young, but we are asking folks to head over there to our channel, subscribe so that we can make it to 500 subscribers. We are streaming live on the YouTube channels Burning Spear TV and African National Women's Organization page on Facebook. I'm excited about today's discussion. We have a treat for you today. We are joined by my comrade, Zayi Vendisa, ANWO's recruitment and membership chair, as well as my comrades, Jay and President Yejide. Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru. Uhuru, comrades. Thank you all for joining our program this afternoon, where we talk about U.S. politics and the two-party system. And, for those of you who might need a refresher on what the two-party system is when two political parties hold dominance over the election, whether that's the national presidential elections or local elections, and there really isn't space or opportunity for other political parties to come in. Why I'm muted?
You're out again, comrade.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
It would. Let's get the issues out the way.
Go ahead. Somebody else do it. All right. Somebody else take it. Can you hear me? Great. So the two-party political system. Let's jump into it. Well, when we talk about what we wanted to do in today's program, if you can hear me, and just give me the eye. Okay, just give me. What we wanted to do in today's program was talk about not only this two-party political system, but whether or not the people who are dominating the two-party political system, as Comrade Coco said, represent the interests of Black people. And a lot of Black people this election, this presidential election, as we can sense and feel and hear, see, have been disillusioned with this whole process. First, we had Joe Biden as the front runner for the Democratic Party, and Black people was not feeling confident about their options, And then, we have Donald J. Trump on the opposite side, which obviously is not a choice that a regular Black person would would pick. And then Joe Biden stepped down and he brought forward Kamala Harris, who was accepted as the Democratic Party nominee for the for president. And she has chosen a running mate, Waltz. I think his name is Tim Waltz, I believe. And they're running and they're going into the elections as the front runners for the Democratic Party, as the only choice for the Democratic Party. There are also Jill Stein, who represents the Green Party, which is not a popular party here in the United States, but is growing and has been growing, I think, over the last 20 years. And then we have the Libertarian Party, which is quite minute, I think, in terms of comparison to the other two. So we are, the Black Lives Matter Coalition in 2016 went around the country and decided that they were going to ask Black people what we cared about. Now, we know that, you know, if you're not a revolutionary like us and you want to destroy the whole thing, like should burn to the ground and create something new and beautiful, then you still need to be, then you're probably still engaged in this process, right? Like, and that's okay, right? Like, we have to be able to use the tools that are available to us to make influence in the best way that we know how. And the Black Black is Back Coalition created the Black political agenda based on going around the country asking different pocket Black people about what they cared about. And so this 19-point platform was established, and we're going to go ahead and screen share it with you. And if you registered for this event, you would have had a link to the Black political agenda. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. All right. So this is the Black political agenda. Let me see if I can go a little bit bigger. Here we go. So there are 19 points to this Black political agenda. One is Black women and must have a platform that addresses the issues of Black women. I won't read the whole thing. We're going to come back to some of these points. The Black family issues must address Black family. And later in this program, I'm going to go through the platforms and talk about like which ones do it best or not at all. Community control of the police, that's what Black people said they care about. At the time, 2016, was reeling and continue to reel over police violence against Africans. Free all political prisoners, no contest, no question, right? Like any African who's in jail right now because they were fighting for the freedom and liberation of African people need to be set free. Roll back and end mass incarceration. Reparations, that has to be on your platform. If we're not addressing that, then you know you're not even front runner for me. Self-defense. Nationalize the banks and end ever the rule of capital. Full employment and national minimum income. Right to housing. Halt gentrification. Black businesses must be nurtured. A right to free education through postgraduate level, that's number 13. Number 14, free universal quality health care for all. 15, voting rights. 16, U.S. out of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. 17, the West must pay its debt to Africa and its descendants. 18, free Palestine, down with Israeli apartheid. 19, climate change and toxic pollution created by capitalism must end. I just want to say that even though there's the Black political agenda, this should be the agenda for all people. Period, right? Like this should be the agenda for all people. I won't keep it on the screen, but we're going to continue to reference it as we get through. And I just want to welcome my comrades who are patiently waiting while I, explain this whole thing. And first, we want to just go round table and talk about, what our personal, like we know capitalism must die, right? Colonialism must be crumbled under the weight of African working class, right? Like this is what it is, right? But we recognize that again, people who do participate in this farce of a system can participate in a way that will hopefully ensure better conditions for Africans until we crush the capitalism. So I'm going to do a round table and just have comrades open up and introduce themselves if they need to, and then talk about like what they even care about in this climate, in terms of African people, whether it's in this country or anywhere else in the world. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Jump in. think well, echoey
Echoey if you
usually,
usually.
but you all know me, Jay. Yeah, I mean, so many of these things are intertwined, and so it's, I know that you didn't ask us to like pick one that you think, but it would be really hard to pick one because so many of these things are intertwined and they're so important. Like I think about the relationship between right to housing and gentrification, 10 and 11. Like obviously those two things are very tied up, and in my day-to-day work, trying to stop gentrification, like it is like swimming against a current. you know they use our history of trauma around urban planning, and they use the fact that our neighborhoods are underdeveloped as excuses for development. And they say, well, you're finally getting the development, your neighborhood's underdeveloped, you're finally getting the development you need. But then it's like with, for example, tax increment financing, which is in Detroit and Chicago and Portland and a lot of places. What ends up happening is, and it's such a complex system, and it's hard to even explain. Of course, all of it's tied to bank and capital and all that. But with tax increment financing, they basically halt the taxing in a specific way in order to create a pool of money that goes directly into development. So the people that are in those neighborhoods, that money normally would be going towards their services, like whatever, the things that the public money normally pays for, schools, like that kind of stuff. Instead, a portion of that is going to development. And so they've seen Black and brown communities that are paying their taxes going towards development that doesn't benefit them, that actually like forces them out of they're paying their way out of their own neighborhood. And then the new people that come in are, white folks that take advantage of these programs designed to develop underdeveloped neighborhoods. And then again, that's tied to the Black business piece, because those Black businesses can't pay the larger rents. They have to appeal to these new markets. In Portland, we have what they call like legacy corner stores. And when they say legacy corner stores, like they say it with like this bit of disgust almost, because they're not like the fancy bougie corner store, the organic whatever store. It's a regular store with like chips and drinks and beers and stuff like that, and it's been in the neighborhood forever, but it just doesn't have the vibe that they want. And I could continue to rant on this all day, but I'm curious which ones are immediately jumping out for everyone else. Someone else wants to hop in?
My name is Zai, and I serve as ANWO's membership and recruitment coordinator. And kind of to echo what Comrade Jay was saying, like they all intertwine. But for me, immediately, number 2, which was the Black family, stop all attacks on the Black family. And that's the many different ways that African people are attacked via the medical system, the police, CPS, the fact that so many of us don't have access to basic water. That's an attack. That's chemical warfare. When our water is contaminated and we can't reproduce without our offspring being healthy, that's an attack. Also a big one is self-defense. So that was number 7, and that was the right to be armed from any violent attacks from white citizens, and that includes the police. This military, occupied force that we have been forced to deal with and live with. And ultimately, like at this point, how to me it's perceived, African people act like as if our hands are tied and we don't have any options. We have a plethora of options, but we have to be willing to take those options. And this platform is a great beginning. It lays out what is possible, and all of these things, no matter when the survey could have been taken, are consistent issues that we've had to deal with since the introduction of colonialism. Um, and if I can pick one more, I would say US out of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. That we hear and we see the cries of a death to imperialism, an end to fascism. But at the end of the day, it's colonialism that has all of these countries in a chokehold. And for us to be able to be a communing people without borders that keep us from one another. So I'll leave it there.
Huru, that leaves me as the next one. So I just want to echo something like that yesterday said while I'm in unification with Zaid and Jay. But, yesterday mentioned that this should be these topics that we're discussing benefit all U.S. citizens and abroad, like not just African people, but all of us. We in Harriet's Daughters Book Club, we just finished Organize, Fight, Win. And one of the pieces in that book, and to keep in mind that these are writings from like the 1920s and 1930s that we were discussing, that, it was around labor union organization. And it's like addressing the concerns of your most like oppressed demographic actually helps everyone else. So we look at, all of these issues, which, as Jay said, they all kind of, work together. If you look at all of these issues, housing is an issue, not just for African and Indigenous people. We all experiencing, out of control inflation, especially with housing inflation. When you look at childcare, we all are experiencing issues with childcare. We all are experiencing these issues as a totality for us being, food issues are not just, yes, you seeing them the most impacted in Black and Brown communities, but you're not seeing them only exclusively in Black and Brown communities. It used to be a time that if you wanted, beef shank, you go to the butcher and you'll be able to find beef shank. Now, no matter where you go to, unless you go in, somebody who got cows that they just, are slaughtering, you may go to the grocery store looking for a beef shank and they don't have beef shank, so those issues that we have, and it's important to, like, we are focusing our discussion on the Black community and, Black people and our Black people agenda, but it needs to be, brought aware that all of these issues, and, I just watched it. I'm not that I'm an advocate for Jill Stein. I just, watched a video where Jill Stein's pretty much said the similar as that, addressing issues with the Black and Brown community helps all U.S. citizens. So that's my piece.
Yeah, I'll slip back in. So I'm foreign policy to the bone. Like, that's how I came into this work as a revolutionary, caring and thinking about Black people everywhere, and how the U.S. the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, and that from this what do you call it? Like, this coven of capitalist infestation does it leak out into the world and cause so much havoc, not only out in the world, like, like out there, but like also internally to the domestic colony. It's like the foreign and internal policy in the United States is a huge one. And it does speak to me because it's like I'm an African that opposes everything the U.S. stands for in terms of its foreign policy, like all the time. And like, it's important that what if I live here, right? Like, if I'm living here and I want this country to represent my interests, this foreign policy obviously does not represent my interests at all. I would also have to say the Black family too, and that encompasses Black women, right? Like, I think it's really important that we address some of the real key concerns that have impacted Black women primarily in this country, and Indigenous women, but Black women too, like high rates of infant and maternal mortality, that cannot be explained, right? And one of the reasons it's across all social and economic backgrounds, but like the infant and maternal mortality in this country for Black women is high. And I believe one year there was a statistic like there are more Black babies that are and Black women in danger of dying in the city of in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as in some African country, right? In that city alone. And so, like, this is a question of colonialism. This is a question of the environment that we live in. And if we are to have a Black family, if we are to protect our Black family, and it's really important that we have policies that specifically about Black women. And also terms of like the labor piece too, because Black women, particularly women with kids, are highly exploited. Highly, like the most exploited sector of African community are Black women with children who are most likely to be in the workforce at low rates of pay and stay in longer because of those in those paid grades because they have to take care of also home, whether they are with somebody or not. Zaid?
Yeah, I just want to add something. So I sat in a
Can you
study.
pull your mic a little bit closer to your mouth because it's a little bit like some of it's farther?
Better.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I sat in a study last week for African women who had given birth here in San Diego, and they basically wanted to know like what your like how it was being an African woman while being pregnant and how your treatment was, and like just the whole pregnancy and postpartum. And I want to say went 10 women on the call, and there was 2 of those women who had attested to, letting their employer know that they were going to be having to take some leave because they were pregnant. With that being said, their employer decided to like double and triple their workload because they were going to be missing for some extended period of time. And then with that comes added stress. And both of these women who don't know each other both miscarried at 7 months because of work induced stress. And not have access to the laws, the family paid medical leave and things that are supposed to be of easily access to us, and how they're not, and how no one's talking about these things, how in some governmental positions in which these women were in healthcare, how their family paid leave off they could have up to the entire year, but no one told them that, because they were African women, but they were white women that were getting, the entire year off. So there's all these disparities and all these things that intertwine. But I just wanted to, you were talking about infant mortality rates. And I know one of the things I'm very passionate about is reproductive justice. So,
If I could jump in, I was just thinking about it's echoing. I was just thinking about how, in the summer I went to Cuba and visited one of the hospitals there, and I met, the group that I was with. We met with the administrators and the heads of that hospital, which was one of the largest. It was the largest hospital in the Guantanamo region, and pretty much almost every single one except for one was a Black woman, and also, can I just say that the warmth that was exuding off them is something that I've never experienced from doctors before in my life. And it was just so wonderful. And they talked about, I mean, basically, their infant maternal rate is, miles ahead of ours. I remember the numbers. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I was looking around, and we were all like visibly shocked by like how they spoke about these things, because they would talk about like, oh, this one case happened in 10 years or 5 years, and it just really struck us and it changed everything. They talked about how they had 2 suicides since 2020, and they started implementing all these large scale mental health programs around the island. And it's like, I know 2 people that have attempted suicide myself since then. Like, imagine. And I know that there's population differentials and all that stuff, but even accounting for that, when they talked about how, like just their infant maternal programs and how few women and babies died, it just highlighted our own disparities here. And I also wanted to mention, thinking about like the foreign policy piece. I think about Césaire, Aimé Césaire talks about like the imperial boomerang, right? Where, everything that is done to these other countries comes back to us. And also, I think it's the other way around. I think they also test out things in Black neighborhoods that they also do over there as well. It's not, it's not a one-way sort of relationship. And I know that yesterday your family is Caribbean, so is mine, and a lot of us come here as victims of neoliberalism. You know, in Jamaica, where my family's from, it's like there's visions of these beautiful beaches that are like owned by white people, and meanwhile, it's like a lot of those, like that beautiful part of the island is not accessible to the people that actually live there. And there's all this like bauxite mining and all this other stuff that the U.S. basically uses its power to set up these like really terrible trade relations and exploit people and create these relationships of dependency that create large amounts of poverty. And then those folks escape the poverty, the brain drain brings folks over here. And then I think that sometimes African and Caribbean immigrants can even fall into that model minority myth that is mostly applied to Asian people. But I have seen that for African immigrants here, because there's this sense of like trying to pit two oppressed populations against each other. It's like, oh, they came here with nothing and were able to make themselves of something. And it's like, well, because the US is invested in the myth that, anybody can make it. And, when I was in Cuba, they also talked about the fact that Cubans, when they get to the US, they get every possible benefit, literally. They get housing benefits, they get food benefits, they get cash, they get like a big loans to start businesses, all this immediately. Like there's no other immigrant population that gets stuff. Like everything that, the Republicans say about what the immigrants do as far as like leeching off the systems, the Cubans like actually do that, in the sense that the US government is invested in them telling their relatives that, the US is this wonderful paradise. And meanwhile, Black people in Miami are not getting access to those same things because, there's not that investment in perpetuating that narrative. That, the foreign policy piece, just the fact that all of our luxuries and everything is sort of rooted in this exploitative, like neoliberal global system of domination that is so far reaching, that has its like tentacles and everything. It's so much to even think about, but I feel like these 19 points address a lot of that. But I'll pass it to Comrade Coco if you want to jump in.
I would say, like, I don't want this to be our transition, but I just want to, Robert Brown put in the comment, if you want to highlight it again, like where the Democrats are a party of imperialism, the Republicans, fascism, there has to be a better way to have a viable third party. And you know what? We actually have viable third parties. We just mentioned them in the form of Jill Stein and Butch Ware for the Green Party, and also Robert Kennedy Jr., F. Jr., and Oliver Libertarian, and Chase Oliver as libertarians. We have viable three-party, choices. I think what it goes on is like we are caught into, if you are, and I use the term we as like very liberal, and not liberal as in the case of left-wingism, but I use that term as being very general. We are kind of like ping pong between the Republican and Democratic Party out of fear. Every single time there is a viable third party candidate, we are feared. Like, so when I turned 18, my first time to like vote legally was with W. Bush and I think Al Gore, and then it was Ralph Nader as the Green Party. Anytime I voted, even though I'm an uncommitted voter, anytime I voted in a presidential election, I've always voted Green Party or viable third party whenever possible. So the thing is, and this was brought up. I just recently watched a video of Jill Stein, and she was saying this. We are fearmonger into sticking to the two-party rule. And so that's the reason why I think that I wouldn't think, and that's the reason why we formatted this around the U.S. two-party system. Even though there's viable options, they are, even though there's two-party systems, it's kind of like we forced and feared into continue to participate into these two-party systems. Just think about what they're saying now. If you don't vote for, Kamala, is a vote for, Cheeto. And I'm just like, we shouldn't have that narrative. We shouldn't be afraid to voice our opinions. We shouldn't be afraid to voice, this is supposed to be our government, our country. But as long as we keep on being fearful of voicing our opinions, either anti-government or, a viable third party, we won't progress. We will continue to be reactionary. We will continually be just surviving. None of us are thriving. No one. Jay, you said you got something you want to pop in here. I'm pink.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say is that it's true that we don't have a viable third party in the sense that we don't have a viable democracy, period. So, like the system itself, like the process that we currently have around voting in the electoral college is not like a legitimate, viable process. It doesn't lead to a legitimate, viable democracy. And, I just would like to point out that the illusion, that it does. And maybe one day it can, but we're not there. And the way that our system functions, again, like I said, the electoral college, but also the fact that we have these unelected Supreme Court, lifetime appointed judges, like that is draconian. Like that is some shit that people would talk about, like, a dictatorship doing is something that we do. And, the Citizens United, giving corporations are people, corporations get free speech, like all of these rulings that have given corporations unlimited power, it makes democracy impossible. So, we don't necessarily have a viable electoral system in general. And I think that's part of the fear mongering that exists, is that they're afraid that if we break the duopoly, if honestly, if Kamala loses, like that will be the first president that lost because of Israel. And that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. That is a very big deal. And that could change everything. That alone could change everything. And so thinking about how do we get there? How do we get to a more viable democracy? We have to break the duopoly. And we break the duopoly by fighting a lot of these unfair things. We need to rewrite our constitution. Like we are one of the only nations that still has our old ass constitution from forever ago. The slave owners wrote, like no other place does it. In Colombia's constitution, they have enshrined the rights of indigenous people and Afro descendants. Like in their constitution, they have that enshrined. Could you imagine that being our constitutions instead of us being like 3/5 of a person, And so there's a lot of things that need to change before we're even close to having a viable democracy. But, it starts by like vote for who you want to vote for. Don't vote against anybody. That's not how democracy works. And that's how they want you to vote, because then that keeps the duopoly, voting against somebody, as opposed to voting who you actually want to vote for, because we've been voting for lesser evils this whole time. And
I'm so proud of that.
Where are we now? Where has that gotten us?
I get it. And I really appreciate that. And just in terms of like the idea that fear mongering has led African people to vote against our interests for so many years. I mean, since I've been able to vote and pay attention to what's happening, it's been vote or die. It's been vote Kamala Trump. You mean you don't want to vote? It is all of these things. And I think that it's really important for us to recognize too that the United States is the purveyor of this sort of democracy of two-party system, or even props up one-party dominant authoritarian governments around the world, and then steps in when those governments attempt to democratize, right? And then I think it's really important too that we have to freedom dream. I don't hate using the term, but I feel like we have to be able to see ourselves beyond the limits of what this country is giving to us. And I think what Jay just raised a couple of things like, yeah, can we enshrine reparations in the U.S. Constitution? Can we, changing these sort of things? And I think the more that we do that, the more then we'll be able to break down and chip away at what has held African people in the confines of this colonial project that the United States has become. And I think it's also really important that African people must break out of voting. Like, don't be afraid not to vote Democrat or Republican. Vote who you want. But don't be, if these candidates do not speak to your interest, don't try to look through their platform, which we're going to do in a minute, to find that one thing that kind of okay with you, and then you'll vote that way. But be okay with not voting and absenting, like abstaining from voting, or going to vote and say none to vote is also really powerful, right? It's not wasting your vote. It's showing that these don't people represent, because that's what we're voting for. We're not voting out of fear, right? We're voting because we're voting for the person that represents my interest. A Black woman, just because she's Black, as we've already told you in AMO, does not always mean that these representing your interests, right? A person who loves to, say self-defense is probably not the same person who wants to vote, who you want to vote for because they said the one thing. Or if somebody wears chucks and pearls, or if they dance nice and smooth, if they know Marvin Gaye and they know all these things, that does not mean, unless you care about just that as a foreign policy or internal policy of somebody able to play basketball, then that appeals to you, right? But these are the kind of things that we have to really start thinking about to improve the quality of life for African people on our way to being free, right? Like, if we got to chip away, and this is the way that we do it. A lot of people do it is through the voting apparatus. I want to jump to this clip real quick, but I want to first, if you can get us off the screen. Thank you, Robert, for that piece. But Zaif, did you want to say anything before we jump to that clip that we have of CNN and the millennials?
Yes.
Your mic close to you.
Piggyback off of the freedom dreaming piece. And in a recent interview that Kamala had did with 60 Minutes, and she had made a comment to the effect that she cannot afford to be myopic in her repairing the U.S. economy, and that she was going to do whatever she needed to do that. And it came to my mind that us of African people cannot be myopic when it comes to our conditions. Like, we only review them every 4 years when there's somebody new to take place and make things, worse for us. Like, it's a problem, and the way to correct it, I know, like you're saying, like, you don't like to use the term freedom dreaming, but I think that's the perfect way to put it. Like, we have to be able to envision something other than what we are living now, and not be fear driven. And one of the things that I've noticed through all of the campaign debates and interviews is, specifically with Kamala, she just likes to bring up Trump all the time and like talk about what, it won't be like Trump, or it won't be like this. And so vote for me. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. There's not much of a platform. And it's just it's fear mongering. And we have to stop falling for this. It's not getting us anywhere. So these 19 points are a perfect starting place. Like, if you don't know what you should be caring about, or what cares, or what matters to you, this is a great starting point. So I'll shut up now and we can get to our video.
All right, so can we show that clip for the screen share, Jay? While Jay gets that up, just to preface it, is the CNN did a thing. There we go. Yeah, let's do it. and left us. Let's try it again. CNN did an interview with some women. Oh, it said welcome. I don't know why it's up there. Here we go. Here it is. Can you play that now, Jay?
Women gonna save the world and they gonna save Democrats. What do you think about that notion?
Are you ready to hold up democracy?
Absolutely not.
No, I can barely hold up my rent. I can't be holding democracy. Okay. That's just I definitely think there is that narrative that Black women have to play superwoman to so many things. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of Black women, a lot of the Black community are just kind of like they just expect us to support them and what have they done for us.
I feel like they put us at this high standard, and if VP Harris is elected and she doesn't do the things that she says she's going to do in these 4 years, right? It's going to be, oh, she promised us this, she didn't do this, which it's the same thing for everything that Biden promised or everything that Trump has promised, but they're going to put more pressure on her because she's a Black woman.
She's on the glass cliff.
Yeah, for sure. Does it matter to you that we're at a point in history where Black women are running for Congress and winning, and that America could potentially elect their first woman president, woman of color, who is a woman who is Black and of South Asian descent?
I love that. I love that we're at a point in time that we can have these opportunities as Black women, as Asian women.
What in her plan would convince you that, yes, this is my candidate and this is my moment?
Yes. Affordable housing, reproductive rights, like what's she gonna do to make it easier for people who, are in a predicament that they don't want to be in? Healthcare as well, affordable healthcare, and police reform. If I hear her plans on that and I like it, I'll vote.
All right, we done got Dee to commit that she is going to the ballot box, honey, if she hears the plan. Straight from the mouths of the young millennial Black women of America, honey. Thank y'all so much for your time.
I keep saying, where are we? Welcome. I keep saying CNN, but it's actually MSNBC. So that was an error on my part. Just quote them like we want to. That was not our clip. It was something borrowed from MSNBC just for the copyright stuff. It's not our clip. So I thought we wanted to share that because just we wanted to share the opinions of other Black women, obviously, who may not be revolutionary, but obviously there's a certain sort of dissatisfaction that came out of that conversation. And I think also that is really important for us to also say, I think when we open the conversation, just switch it, just take it and pull it over. Internal conversation, but we were looking at, what these candidates say they're going to do based on the Black political agenda. Now, we're not going to screen share this, but I was, I shared the document with my comrades, and I hope you had a minute to take a look at it. But I'm particularly thrown. And I actually did it with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and then I also added Jill Stein to it because I felt like we needed to have, because we're talking about a duopoly, right? Like a two-party system, that we had to throw in the third party and see how that person's platform compares to the others as well. Obviously, Jill Stein is the front runner on all the issues of the Black political agenda. She's not a Black candidate. But she's talking about all the things that we care about as Black people. Even the women in that conversation should vote that way if they care about those issues and want a representative that's going to do those things. But I don't think they're even thinking Green Party. I think that they're stuck between the Democratic and Republican parties. And even if Kamala on her platform says a lot of great stuff, a lot of great stuff that applies to some Black people. She didn't, the thing where she actually talked about Black-owned businesses, but her main platform is about supporting and lifting up a class, the petty bourgeoisie or bourgeoisie, right? Like fostering the same sort of system that we currently have. It does not address the working class, the most impacted aspect of the society. Most people who have to deal with the most devastating impacts of policy internally and externally. But it's always about building out a middle class, and her platform is supposed to help get us there. There isn't anything specifically about doing that hasn't been said before. It's about she will work to, she will try to, she will do these things, but there's nothing that would tell you exactly how or what she will do in the first 100 days. It just gives you some inklings of, just like every president does. They say, okay, I'm gonna work toward these things, and of course, if they mention it in the first 100 days, that might be their action toward it. But it's really not much. So on the one that we spoke out to me is that none of the candidates, none of the top three frontrunners, and I'm going to say Justine, Kamala, and Trump, obviously, and even Trump, spoke of self-defense. It's actually the fourth candidate that nobody's going to vote for, the Libertarian, Chase Oliver, who said that I will protect people. It says it is the only candidate that's about self-defense. And he says, you deserve the right to protect yourself from violence. I agree. History is an important thing, I think, for African women. It doesn't say African women or anything like that, but it talks about that. And it says the history shows that gun control has often been used to limit the ability of vulnerable groups like you to defend yourself. And I don't know which vulnerable group. I'm always kind of sus when somebody talks about guns and he's white. But he's the only candidate that talks about self-defense, right? And the other candidates don't. And that to me is impactful, because I feel like even when you talk about reparations, economic, and all the other kind of injustices, and even police brutality, which two of the candidates do talk about, the policing, which one candidate really talks about policing and how it impacts Black communities, to not have a self-defense piece is wicked, in my view.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Well, so a little echoing phone. Okay. The thing about that is you can tell what their position is on self-defense through their actions and what policy they support. So they, obviously they're not going to say this out explicitly, but under this administration, the explosion of cop cities, and the administration's full support for cop cities, the fact that just last week they changed some code to authorize lethal force on protesters. Did you all hear about that? The Department of Defense, changed some laws to just authorize lethal defense against people. So they're outright saying that if you try to fight, we'll kill you. And they're expecting us to accept that, and of course, Trump has talked a lot about, pretty much giving free rein to the police as much as possible. And so obviously he wouldn't support self-defense of any marginalized group. And a lot of his supporters are militia members, and it's funny when you think about these militia and these white supremacist groups, they're very buddy with the police. They very much act in tandem. And when you see them marching through the streets, they are literally referred to by police departments as friendlies. Literally, they refer to them as friendlies, and they have a very positive relationship. So at the end of the day, these white supremacist militias and groups, they have infiltrated the police. They're on the same side as police, and we're going to need to defend ourselves from both as they act in tandem with each other. And we've seen that also at UCLA, where the Zionist, militia forces that were enacting violence against the students, and they were authorized by police to do so. Yeah. And I know that, Kamala has also, she's also been very much pro-police, and obviously she's top cop, and, obviously she would not support self-defense against, I don't think she would support self-defense against militias or any kind of group. She would expect, the Black community to, I think, Sinwar, obviously he just died heroically, but he talks about like, do you just accept us to die? Like just roll over and die, and I think that is the expectation for Black communities in the US by the people in power currently, and the people vying for power other than Jill Stein. The expectation is that we will and should accept any oppression that is coming for us and that exists now. And if we dare defy that, then, we disappear or become political prisoners. I mean, think about all the people from Ferguson. I mean, they've all been disappeared. Like all of the popular, movements over the years for Black liberation against police, all of their leaders have disappeared and have died under very mysterious circumstances. We know that the police have done this. And we know that either the police or militias in conjunction with the police have done this, and that is the expectation that we'll roll over and die as things get worse and worse for us. But we're not going to allow that to happen.
Or absorbed, right? Like in Ferguson, I'm sorry, Zaidi, I'm going to let you jump in, but like even in Ferguson, like some of the people have been absorbed by like nonprofit money. Let me tell you, like that's a real thing. They've become the heads of these organizations that work for, basically end up working for the Democratic Party. And I think also, like, when we talk about like Harris's position on being a top cop, her internally is reflected in her policy toward Palestine. And also, like, when she talks about self-defense, is the Biden-Harris reign of terror, right? Like, there's a lot of school shootings that are happening, and they're nothing. Saying there's a lot of gun violence has been happening. So whatever she's promising in her term as president, man, what evidence do we have to even believe what you're saying? And then even her specific platform says Harris will never hesitate to take whatever action to protect the U.S. forces and interests from Iran-backed terrorist groups. And our vice president will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and she will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself. That's the only time that she talks about self-defense is on behalf of Israel. I mean, I think at the very least, right, for people who've been out in these streets, these Black women who say they care about freedom and liberation and all these things, at the very least, on this question, you should not vote for Kamala Harris. I mean, on this issue alone, I don't know. I've over-talked it. I'm going to let you get in.
No, that's the piece that I was going to talk about. I think it's fair to say that, post Black Lives Matter movement, that the greater majority of African people do not think that we united, that it's not okay for us to be murdered in the street. So we cannot support people who support such policies. And this, like, giving her a 4 years, ma'am, you've already had 4 years and you have done absolutely nothing. And even her track record before then, it's like what Jay had said, like these simple changes in policy. I think I had read in 1989 that San Francisco was a sanctuary city for undocumented immigrants, which means, the police cannot report to the immigration agency about like anything. And they changed something to where if the police had suspected that an undocumented minor was committing a felony, that they had to report that information. So it's all these like little tricks and things that happen. It's not even behind closed doors because the stuff is in plain, like you can find it, you can see it. Like I said, she just had 4 years. And what has she done? Nothing. And we cannot ignore all the police stuff. She identifies as a top cop. She thinks it's cute to compare herself, like taking down Donald Trump, and she knows his type. Ma'am, we know your type. And we will not. So I really hope that, our listeners and the people that are viewing this broadcast are taking these things into account. We have to be able to do research besides the fear mongering stuff that's like pushed upon us.
I just want to also, I'm looking at the comparison chart too, and on my issue of foreign policy, point number 16, where it says U.S. out of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. She said, as commander-in-chief, she will ensure, this is Kamala, that the United States military remains the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. That we unleash the power of American innovation and win the competition for the 21st century, and that we strengthen, not abdicate, our global leadership. So that sounds so scary. It's frightening. Like it's like Trumpish, right? Like it's something that you would expect. Trump goes further. Here's what Trump says. Trump says, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over the entire country. I'm taking it from the website, y'all. It was not a made up quote from somewhere. This is actual text. And of course, Josiah has a very different avenue for foreign and policy and demilitarization. But that's just scary, in terms of like being able to say, she's a lethal fighting. It's like we've known that the United States is the greatest purveyor of violence. We don't want that. Do y'all want more wars? Yeah, I mean, do y'all want more havoc all over the world? Y'all want more of that? And she's the top cop. She wanted it to happen. Thank you so much. James Starks. Go ahead. Anybody else? Thank you so much, James, for that $5 donation. Appreciate you. I didn't know we can do that yet. I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you so much for that donation.
A lot about the whole piece.
Mhm.
A lot of people are talking about, how Trump will be so much worse in Palestine, which, first of all, you can't get any worse. They're literally lining up men and children and doing summary executions into mass graves right now. Like, how can you get worse than that? Like, there is no worse than that. Like, looking at pictures of Gaza, you think you can actually get worse than that? Like, it's literally not possible. And so, people are always talking about foreign policy and Kamala's going to be better on that and all that. And actually, I don't really think so, because like it seems like most people want to avoid World War III, but Kamala seems all in. Like she's gung ho for it. She knows it's going to make a good buck for her corporate overlords. And if it destroys the planet in the process, maybe they'll figure that out and find a nice ship where all the rich people can go or something. But like, I get the sense that, well, first of all, even if Trump was 100% for everything that Kamala was for, by being Trump, the Democrats are going to oppose it. So there's going to be an opposition. And like, think about like the 2020 protests and all of that. Like that was like, during Trump, like everybody was out on the streets. And like a lot of the Civil Rights Act and a lot of that kind of stuff passed under Nixon, So this idea that like we can't have any progress under, a conservative, like fascist president is actually wrong, because there is actual opposition. And that is why the Democrats are referred to as, the planned opposition, is because they divert any kind of like revolutionary radical fervor into the continuation of like the neoliberal military industrial complex agenda. And meanwhile, people are going to actually like rise up, against Trump. And also like, I feel like, I don't actually know. None of us really know, but the Russians got something on Trump. Like they truly, they have a relationship. And I'm not saying that this is like a good or a bad thing per se, but I think that it might keep him somewhat in check. He can't be belligerent towards the Russians like Biden, like Kamala have and will continue to be. And I don't think we should be provoking the Russians or Iran any more than we have. Like we have been provoking them this whole time. And I don't think we should be doing that. I mean, not us. When I say we, I mean like the U.S. military industrial complex. But like we can't be provoking these major world powers. And also like Trump, he talks a lot of smack about China, but every one of his products is made in China. Like he has very strong business relationships in China. So for all the rhetoric, his rhetoric was really bad about immigration, and Biden and Obama deported way more people than he did. So he talks a lot, and it's why people are scared of him, is because he said some pretty bad things. and he gives some pretty terrible people license to say some pretty bad things. But when you actually look at the policies and how many people are actually materially harmed, like how many people like actually die, it's like actually more people that die police brutality, more people that are deported, like more people end up dying overseas in military conflicts and all sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of rhetoric, but we have to look at like what the other actual like actions are. And luckily, we have evidence of both. You know, we have Trump as the previous president, and we have Kamala as the current VP. So we can really like understand what their actual platform is based on how they've been. We don't have to conjecture about what they might do or what they might do. If they would have done it, they would have, like, if they wanted to do it, they would have already done it.
And I'll say this too, that with Trump, Trump helped me see during his presidential election, within the first 100 days, how easy it is to do what the fuck you want. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all these other presidents have said it's difficult to do X, Y, and Z, and he's just slashing. It was horrible stuff. It was crazy, like crazy stuff. But he able to stack it so that he's able to move things, people fired. And I'm just like, y'all, we need to have a person to go into the presidential office for black people, like kicking the door, waving the 4-4, and doing what it is they do, because that is evidence that you. So that helped me understand how not limited or restricted you can be when you become president. It's like, oh, you're tied down by the electoral, like by the legislative branches, and I'm just like, maybe yes, but there are some things that you can do as the president. You can free political prisoners, you can pardon them all. You can do a lot of things. And that his presidency helped me see that all of junk that was spewed about why Obama couldn't do this or some other president couldn't do that was trash. It was not real. And it's because they did not and they could not do it because that was not in their interest to do. Their interest is to serve U.S. imperialism. And Trump's interest was to serve himself. And so, you know what I mean? So like, but none of those interests are to rectify any harms that are being done toward people in this country who has been historically oppressed. And that's what it comes down to. So we have about 30 minutes left in our program. And Jay, are you still with us or do you have to jump off?
I have to.
Okay. Well, any last words before we go into our announcements? Jay?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll just say that, like, you know, I said this earlier, but I just want to reiterate that, like, we have to be voting for the people that we want to vote for, that we want to like see in office. And we can't keep doing this fear mongering, this lesser evil thing. And, you know, at the end of the day, the duopoly is like the illusion of free will. You know, they give us the illusion of two choices when they're both being puppeted by the same system. And we have to break the duopoly by any means. We need to do that as soon as possible, whatever that means. You know, I mean, we talked a little bit about Jill Stein but there's also other candidates. I'm saying vote for the person that goes best with your policies. And, you know, looking at this 19-point plan, none of the major, you know, none of the Democrats and the Republicans don't even touch any of that. And they will never serve our interests. And that's why we got to break the duopoly. So I will leave it at that and appreciate you all. Now we go into announcements.
Thank you so much, Shay. Coco, handing it over to you. We can't hear you, but I'm sure that we will rectify that.
As she was sharing, hold on, it won't. Here we go. Come on.
When Coco gets that up, we'll start sharing. Oh, here we go. All right.
Okay, so we're on our way to the Q&A section, which is always my favorite part. So please prepare your questions. Remember to please share your name, your location, and then your question. And let me, it looks kind of funky, so let's make sure we have the right. All right. So just before, closing out today's program, we do have some important announcements. I do want to go ahead and encourage everyone to, donate to our phase 2 of the Annual Liberation Center located in St. Louis, Missouri. And ANWO itself is the organization of the African poor and working class. So we need your support to establish an international mecca for African women. We're calling on members, followers, viewers, anyone else that unites with establishing a working class embassy, a hub for community empowerment, and a testament to the resilience of African people. Don't wait until the program ends. Pledge your support now. I see we had a $5 donation come in that's going to go right into the African National Women's Organization, the Annual Liberation Center. We welcome one-time donations of any amount. You also consider becoming a sustaining donor with sustaining donor level starting at just $5 a month. Every dollar helps us buy a nail, drywall, flooring, plumbing, etc. To donate at any time within this program or out, go to anwouhuru.org/donate. And if you're in the St. Louis area and can donate your skills, please reach out to us at info@anwouhuru.org. Wear your politics with ANWO. ANWO shop features t-shirts, mugs, sweatshirts, travel socks, bags, hoodies. We got it all. Is a way to, support African National Women's Organization and also to display your politics in person. Consider become a decolonizer. Don't consider, become a decolonizer, which is what we call our distributors and customers of Decolonase Hair and Body. Decolonase Hair and Body are natural personal care products that highlight ingredients and traditional care practices used by indigenous people all around the world. In addition to featuring images and quotes of African revolutionaries, they are good. From our butters and conditioners to our oils, Decolonase has you covered from head to toe. So make sure your next purchase of skincare products are from us at decolonase.com. So all out for the trial, or I should say all out for the sentencing. The federal government has moved forward with the bogus charges against the Uhuru 3, which is Chairman Omali Yeshitela, leader of the African People's Socialist Party, Penny Hess, chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Jesse Neville, chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Committee. So we are still the deadline to write character letters to the judges it has been extended to October 30th. So make sure that you show your support of the reason why these Conrads should not have to face any prison time or as lenient as possible. And also if you're in the Tampa, Florida area, or have the ability to fly to Tampa for the sentencing on December 16th. And also continue to make donations to the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Fund. You can find out more and how to support at handsoffuhuru.org. If you enjoyed today's program and would like to help us produce shows in the for the remainder of 2024 and into 2025, volunteer with us. ANWO is looking for interpreters, video editors, and chat moderators for future broadcasts and programs. Email us at info@anwouhuru.org if you'd like to share your skills. All right. So ANWO is the host of the 2024 One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market in St. Louis. Our next market is October 26th. If you're interested in becoming a vendor, please go to oneafricamarket.com/vendors to find out more and to register. And then lastly, Harriet's Daughter Book Club and Study Group are monthly virtual and in-person meetings led by the African National Women's Organization, where Black women and femmes come together to discuss books and other literature that centers on African liberation themes. We invite sisters to join, whether you have read the book or not, because it is a great discussion. I also want to mention anyone that supports Annual and Annual's views. We do encourage you to attend. Our November book of the month is African Women in Revolution by Wenyabari O. Maloba, or W.O. Maloba is commonly referred to. Our next book discussion will be on November 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's open to African women, films, and those who are in solidarity with ANWO. Visit anwouhuru.org/events to stay up to date of all upcoming international, national, regional, and local events and programs. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade. I also have one more announcement that I wanted to make before we go into questions and answers, or just comments that we want to highlight. So get your comments in after I show this. Hold on one second. Let's see if that works. Okay. Yeah, so we're calling on comrades to come. If you're on the East Coast of the United States, come to the Black People's March on the White House. You can go to blackpeoplesmarch.com, and it's going to be November 2nd at 11 a.m. All of what we're talking about right now is leading us up to this moment. It's talking about two-party election, but we're also talking about a government, the Biden-Harris government, that has had a political attack on our movement. And under the Biden-Harris government, these foreign agent accusations have been flying from left to right. I mean, you talk about anti-democratic government or regime. We're talking about the Biden-Harris regime, right? So here we have our chairman and the three comrades who are fighting for their freedom and defending the U.S. Constitution, right to free speech. And now we are at the point where we're doing sentencing, and we're asking everybody to do the most lenient sentence they can find for our comrades so they can continue to do work. But a way that you can also support is coming out on November 2nd in Washington, D.C. To support our comrades. We're going to have some amazing speakers. And then if you're in the West Coast, it's going to be a mobilization in Los Angeles as well. So go to blackpeoplesmarch.com to find out more information and to sign up to be in the house or in the streets, as we will say when we're marching down the streets on November 2nd. So Uhuru.
Uhuru. It looks like we lost E.
Did we lose Ray? Oh no. Oh no, she's here. I just had to put back on. Here we go. We didn't lose her quite yet. Here she goes.
Like, no. I'm so excited, Zayn. I love Zayn. Like Zayn just a powerful comrade. Like she's just a professional revolutionary.
Listen, before we get into it, I have a lot of questions. I see comments, but like before we get into that, I just want to hold up this organization, the African National Women's Organization, y'all. If you're not a member, you need to join. FYI, like we are the only African women's organization in the world that's anti-imperialist, anti-colonial, represents the interests of Black women, and we could be doing more with you, right? This is our political pitch right now. We could be doing more. I want you to be like, if this is your politic, if you need to have a political home, why not join the African National Women's Organization? And come on home, sis. We're here for you. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet, what language you speak. You might not understand what I'm saying right now. Please use a translator and become a member of this organization, because, you know, we're fighting for the rights and freedoms for African women, but also all African people as a part of a revolutionary struggle for all African people to be free. We trying to free y'all, and African women as a part of this process is helping to create that, but also fighting for those against the special oppressions that we face. So it's really important that y'all go over to Anwo Uhuru, ANWOUHURU.org, join at whatever level that you feel comfortable, and become a member if you're an African woman. And if you're not an African woman, you're an African man or something else, and you know some African women that you is in this space, send them on over to us. Maybe we can give you like a referral. Like we can get a discount on Decolonize. I'll put that out there live on the breakdown. If your referral comes through, you can get 15% discount to Decolonize products if you are into beautiful skin and all that good stuff, all the juiciness that comes with the Decolonize products. So yeah, just say that. Let us know. But I'm gonna open it up and just I don't see any. Let's see, there's something pinned. Okay, that was Robert Goddard. Okay.
Yes, Scott
Yes,
Glove,
Scott Glove.
Cove,
Oh,
on YouTube.
YouTube.
Election of Biden
Biden
here
here
is vibrant,
in the streets.
Black Lives Matter movement back to sleep, then inaugurated record-breaking police violence. Touche. Zai, you got something you definitely had it that Zai looked like, yep. Yeah.
I was just trying to find it to pin it. Okay. I was like, I couldn't hear you because I was trying to find it. Okay. Help with vibrant industries beyond coming back to sleep and inaugurated record breaking. Oh yeah.
And
I just don't know how we can forget. Like when Kamala was VP, we were having these was even being questioned as VP. We were having these conversations. Like we were concerned about her right. I mean, even the top feminist of the Black Lives Matter movement, Angela Davis was talking about, I'm concerned, but my feminist side says that I'm going to give her opportunity to be the worst individual she can as vice president, and here she is doing it, and I'm just like, underneath the Biden-Harris regime, Israel is allowed to commit genocide against Palestine. That should be your. I mean, I just don't even. And then in her platform says she's going to continue to defend Israel's rights to self-defense. In the platform that she's using to be trying to become president, she's saying this. Like y'all for real? And then she's talking about being the greatest purveyor, continuing the level of being the greatest purveyor of violence all over the world. Does say stuff on her platform to be quite fair about, Black-owned businesses and all these things, but that's all in efforts to promote a middle class, the African petty bourgeoisie, right? Which we know sells out the interests of the African working class every single time. So, and there's nothing in her platform that's indicative that we can see her right now. She's not some Obama that comes out of nowhere. She's somebody who's been on the political landscape for decades. So she has a track that we can find and see and track. So this is an issue, right? Like, this is an issue. And again, you vote how you want to vote. And this is not a bash. Yes, it is. Sorry. But like, this is let's make good sense, y'all. Let's make good sense, Africans. And it's okay to vote your way. And if none of these candidates are representing your interests, it's okay to go to the ballot, say I voted, and then put uncommitted on that ballot. Mm-hmm. It's okay to do that. It's okay to do that. I don't know. Go ahead, comrade.
I'll just give a reminder. Okay. I'll just give a reminder. Like, I know a lot of times that people say like, oh, we can't like let our vote go to waste, or our ancestors died for our right to vote. Your ancestors died for freedom. And if your vote doesn't produce the freedom, then it's a waste. So I want for us to keep that in mind, as we go to the polls, or if we don't go to the polls, or like yesterday said, utilize that line and write your real thoughts. You like that line. But yeah, we have to make a pivot, and it's it's very inherent that it's coming soon, it's shaky, and we're coming to the precipice. So this was great, by the way. I enjoyed being on.
Yeah, this little hand is coming out of the left side of your phone, like just trying to feel your mic. It's almost scary. It's like Halloween is coming up and we see his hand reach out. You fighting? I'm like, are you okay? What you say? You just shot her head serious about whatever it is that she's trying to do. But yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know what more to say. I think we've kind of beaten this with that horse. I think, even if you're not a revolutionary, as I said at the beginning, that you have an opportunity to vote for your interests. Hi, Sade. And we are Black family friendly here on this show. So Sade and all the children, all the kids can come to this program. But if you are okay, turn on mute, Coco. His voice is strong. But if you want to vote for your interests, right, and your interests not represented, I don't know. It's not hard for me. I mean, ultimately, what we're saying as African National Women's Organization is that we want to get free. I mean, that's it. That's what African internationalism tells us. It tells us that this whole entire political strong construct was created on the backs of African and indigenous people, and that parasitic was core, and the only way that they can keep itself afloat is by continuing to be parasitic. So even if somebody on this platform, the front runners have a good platform or say something about Black women or Black people or something like that, but that they also talk about in the same breath becoming like the most violent purveyor of violence everywhere. You can't expect that's going to be something that you can expect outside the colony, right? So there's nothing about this platform that's liberating us from the confines of domestic colonialism. Also, but more likely, since they're trying to create a middle class, right, to entrap us, keep us rooted to it, so they can continue to be parasitic around the world inside the colony itself. And I just think, we have to break free. I feel like there should be like a Superman SMS, like how Superman just breaks free and exposes. But this will be the capitalism is the virus, socialism is cure. Like that will be the that comes out. That we have to break free of the entrapment of. I'm gonna leave it that and see if anybody else want to say something. And of course, y'all can continue to donate when you.
I just want to go back to something Zais said. She said that, we have had Kamala, representative of, this current government in the form of the vice president of this colonial structure. But, people are going to say, well, she's a vice president. She don't have that much power. One thing we've learned in, like, I would say the past 20 years is the power of influence. And how, like, even though Donald Trump didn't have any political history, he didn't have any, but what he had was influence. And so through that influence, he was able to get power. The same thing can be true for Kamala as vice president. Though you don't have, these executive powers, you have influence. You're Biden's right-hand man. So anything that you could have been doing, you should have been doing. This we have to, and again, I'm like yesterday, let's break our stuff off and just be like, let's be heard as individuals. Let's be heard as African people. Let's be heard as U.S. citizens. So if you want to participate in the vote in voting for in the United States, vote for your beliefs. Going back to that comparison chart very quickly, the only point that was not that's in the Black political agenda that was not addressed by the Green Party, and which is Jill Stein and Butch Ware, was self-defense. Everything else was in their platform. So we have to educate ourselves. We can no longer like that. We should all be tired of the lesser two evils. Let's stop voting for evil. Let's vote for ourselves. Let's vote for being good U.S. citizens, or good humans. Like I said the other day, I don't care who you vote for. Or who you praise, or what faith or nationality. Just be a good human. And being a good human to African indigenous people means that being a good human to every single person on this earth. Huru. Sorry.
But your cousin, I think also too, like Kama was busy, y'all. So in addition to this, she was busy. She was out in Mexico telling them to bring out borders and accept all these immigrants that they trying to kick out of the United States. She was in Africa, you know what I'm saying, meeting with these world leaders, talking about we trying to be your best friend. She was busy. She's in Israel. She's all over the place. She was busy. You know, she's out here doing the bidding of U.S. imperialism, and she was doing it. And because of her feminine wild, right, her brownness, you know, maybe she was able to be received a little bit better than her, like Hillary Clinton. You know, Hillary. Yeah. But maybe because of Kamala, she might have twinged on the Trinidadian accent, should have, browned up a little bit, in places where she might have been received a lot better than Hillary Clinton. And I think that it's important to say that because that's what Obama was used for. Right? The brownness, the blackness, these are the things that get you in spaces that normally wouldn't have been. Conquer Africa again, and use Africa as a base point for U.S. militarism, to use these other brown places. And that was her job. So take a look at it. Look at it. She was all over the place. She, it was on the news. She's flying back from Africa, from some Ghana, from wherever. She's just been in Mexico, and she's in negotiations. I mean, for this U.S. imperialism. So, don't get the shit. Like, she's out here, I don't want to be disrespectful, y'all, but she out here in these streets, getting them tricks, But I think that was kind of disrespectful. Anyway, thank y'all for looking. Thank y'all for watching the breakdown with the African National Women's Organization with our guest co-host Saeed Vadisa. We hope you can come back. And my comrade Coco Lewis. And we hope that we don't know what next month's breakdown is going to be about, but let us know. We also want to know what you want us to talk about. I did open up in our emails. If you have interest and you I want y'all to talk about this. This is what I'm concerned about, girls. Yes, do it. Send an email to communications at anwouhuru.org and let us know what you want us to. We're going to find a better email than that. We're going to make maybe the breakdown or something. Communications at anwouhuru.org and let us know what you want us to cover in the future. And we hope that you come back and support the work that we do, but also this program. Share, get our annual page on YouTube to be 500 subscribers. And only come back next month.